All right. All right, welcome everybody. Today we're going to be talking about how to breathe without getting dizzy. What I want you to do right now, if you're watching live, which many of you are, is I want you to type dizzy, D-I-Z-Z-Y, in the chat so people who typed dizzy before can now find the video. You got it. You're way ahead of me on that one. So yeah, type dizzy in the chat and we'll get started. So for today, I'm going to be running you through a couple of actual breathing exercises, and I want to make a couple disclaimers first and foremost. There may be a point at which you notice yourself getting a little bit dizzy from the process, and I'm first going to describe what does dizziness mean in the context of breathing. Like, what's actually happening from a neurotransmitter level, from a chemical level, from a consciousness level, and I'm going to help you understand it and contextualize it, because sometimes you can breathe, sometimes you get dizzy, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing per se. And however, I do understand that it can be discomforting for some people. So I want to make sure that we find ways to, what I will say is, take what is good about the breathing and leave out the parts that are contributing to dizziness so that you can breathe without having discomfort. That's the main goal here. And breathing should ultimately be used as a health enhancing tool. That's the main thing. So let's do this. First of many firsts is don't do this while driving a car. Don't do this while operating heavy machinery where you might pass out. It's possible that with breathing you can pass out. I'm not going to be doing anything hardcore today. No Wim Hof breath of fire or Tumo breathing or anything like that. We're just going to keep it nice and easy, nice and slow, nice and relaxed. The purpose for this is to stimulate your vagus nerve so that it will release acetylcholine into your system. Mainly, we're going to be releasing acetylcholine throughout your whole body and flooding your brain with acetylcholine. Acetylcholine in the brain is that part of the parasympathetic system that will calm you down, that will relax you, and it also has cognitive enhancing effects. So choline, or the cholinergic system, when it's active in flooding your brain, is going to give you access to short-term and long-term memory, storage, and recall. That's what the system is. So your memory, if it doesn't have choline, will not function properly. So typically when people are breathing a lot, memories that may have been inaccessible may become more accessible. So that's one of those things that contributes to dizziness. Sometimes if your brain remembers an event from the past that has a valence or memories have energy to them. Memories are like a song or an MP3 file that you play, and when you play it back, you are recalling the physical emotions and experiences of that. Great. Thank you for all the support in the chat. I love it. I hope by now people who wrote dizzy yesterday will see this video in their feed. So we can only hope, right? Thank you to the Facebook algorithm gods for supporting us in this venture. So a memory coming back can happen because you're flooding your brain with choline. You're getting more access to your memory, and so that can contribute actually to dizziness as well. Another thing that contributes to dizziness is that your brain is trying to understand where it is in one moment, and if your environment is static but your brain is expecting movement, you get a discordance with what your brain expects and what it's receiving as input. So by sitting still and breathing, your brain typically doesn't experience rapid breathing in a static environment because you're probably not used to it. Typically, throughout most of your life, you've probably gone outdoors and did heavy breathing when you're hiking, or maybe you went for a jog, or maybe you had strenuous activity in a moving environment. So there's a discordance between expectation and reality. And so breathing while stationary can cause that effect. So I will say There are some resources we have for breathing practices you can do while walking. And if you know one of our tools that we have available, it's called the Hour of Power Audio. And I'll share that in the description of this video on YouTube. And it's another YouTube video called the Hour of Power. And it's a process I'll show you right now. You probably want to do it while walking, but I'll just demonstrate it here today so you know it. So the process is it's a 4-4 count process. What you're going to do is you're going to touch your fingers together, your thumb to your normal fingers like this. You're going to do this process. And you're going to do 4 breaths in through the nose and then 4 breaths out through the mouth. And I'll show you what that looks like. So you're going to go and then shh, 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 like you're making a shh sound, okay? And so that's the 4-4 Hour of Power morning breathing style that I like. That's one that I do every day. I actually have I have a pair of headphones with an MP3 on them that just preloaded. I don't have to pair it to my phone or anything like that. And so I will be sharing the resource on that very shortly here today in the Facebook group. And you can get the link to that as well. So let's do that let's just do that like 10 times, okay? So what I want you to do, if you have a free hand, if you're holding your phone and you're watching, maybe you have another free hand, all you're going to do is you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So your thumb to these fingers. You see that pattern? Now what you're also doing is by touching your fingers together, you're creating a neurological activity actually in your motor cortex, your planning and pre and post motor cortex. So you're actually doing some form of brain stimulation by actually touching your fingertips together. And anything that fires together wires together. You've heard that before. So by doing the finger touching and tapping, you're actually creating these like neurological pathways that can serve you further in the future in stressful times. And just generally, you bring that with you for the rest of your day. So let's do this. Ready? So 1, 2, 3, 4, out, 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 out. So in through the nose. Shh, 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 shh. 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 Good. Okay. So just by doing that a few times at that rate, I immediately feel a little different. Okay. So what I'll notice is I feel a calm stillness developing that wasn't there as much before I started the breathing. So I want you to type a 2 into the chat on the live right now if you feel a little different than you felt before you did that, okay? Couple things to notice is I feel like almost in my nasal cavity, a little bit of a coolness, a little bit of a tingling, a buzzing sensation. I kind of hear in my ears a little bit like the sound has changed a little bit. I see a 2 in the chat here, another 2, good. So it has an effect. It's a lightweight effect. Now let's break down what's happening. Another 2, great. Okay, so it's happening. So what happened here is that think about the pathway that the air, the oxygen, the nitrogen, everything has to take to go into your lungs. You're sending air into your nasal passage, and if you think about the anatomy of your nose and your mouth and the roof of your mouth and the back of your mouth, you have what's called the soft palate. And the soft palate is at the very top of the back of the roof of your mouth. There's a soft piece of skin, and your vagus nerve innervates all into that whole area. So one thing you can do, I wouldn't recommend it now, but you could take the pad of your thumb and put it back there and actually rub and kind of tickle the back of your throat a little bit, and that can actually kind of stimulate your vagus nerve. So I see another 2. So you can stimulate your vagus nerve by physical touch, but you can also stimulate your vagus nerve through nostril breathing. So when you breathe air in and you feel really carefully the pathway, just take a long sustained breath in through your nose and feel right around this area, deep in at the real center part of your mouth and your soft palate at the back of your throat, and feel if you feel a change in temperature. Now, your vagus nerve has receptors that can detect all kinds of different things. There's about 42 different kinds of sensations that your vagus nerve can detect. So if you had, for instance, like menthol, right? So if menthol or camphor, what you rub on your chest, Vicks Vapor Rub or whatever. I'm sure you're going to get an ad for Vicks after this video is done, I'm sure, because I just mentioned it. Or Dizzy. And so menthol stimulates certain receptors in the nasal passage and in the back of your throat that connect to your vagus nerve. Your vagus nerve has little fingers in the soft palate, and menthol will bind to those receptors, and then your vagus nerve detects the presence of menthol. And that means certain things in certain types of categories, but it can be very calming. So menthol as a smell can have a calming, soothing effect on the body. So that's because of its action in the soft palate. So if you're doing this like 4-4 breathing count, so let's try it again. Let's just do 3 of these, okay? So with me, we're going to do tapping the thumb to this finger, this finger, this finger, this finger. Index, middle, ring, pinky. Index, middle, ring, pinky. Pretty simple, okay? So let's just do that. Let's just do it 3 times, okay? So I'm going to do it. We're going short in through the nose, like, and then out with a shh, 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 just like that. Okay, ready? Shh, 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 shh. One more. Shh, 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 shh. Good. So that's 3 sets of this 4-4 finger breathing count. Now, again, going back to that, it immediately recalls that feeling of centered calmness. Now, as we do that, remember this whole idea, everybody knows the term, everything that fires together wires together. So when you're tapping your fingers, you're stimulating receptors up here in your brain, and you're stimulating your vagus nerve. So it's possible that as you strengthen that kind of connection, if you're in a kind of a stressful situation and you don't want to do a full sit down breathing kind of thing, then it could be just as good just to, with even out necessarily having to do the breath, you could probably just in your pocket or somewhere privately is just tap your fingers together like this. So try this with me. The neural connection may be there or not, but let's just try 2 sets of finger tapping. So just first feel how you feel right now without doing any breathing. Just take a moment to settle in and feel how you feel. And then I want you to just tap and just take normal breaths. Ready? One more. Okay. So I don't know if it's happening for you, but it's happening for me, is that I'm getting a slight perception of the same kind of effect I got when I was doing breathing and finger tapping, but I got it just with the finger tapping, and I wasn't even breathing. I was just kind of holding my breath still. It might not happen for you. I do this every day, so I've really wired this together. But let me know in the chat. Type a 3 in the chat if you also got some semblance of a shift in despite not breathing in that pattern. So let me know in the chat at 3. You don't have to. I don't expect many of you to, but some of you might. So we do have, yes, me too. So somebody did. And if you did get it now, just know that this is a practice that I do every day through the Hour of Power breathing thing. And that's a free resource I'm going to provide to everybody in the Facebook group. So no worries there. And how cool is that, right? Think about that. How cool would it be if you typically have a problem with breathing and getting dizzy, right? That is so weird. That is, okay, this is huge. I just want to call this out. We have a comment here. So with the physical breathing, I get dizziness. with finger tapping alone, I get the calm feeling. That is really cool. Okay. So here we are right now already. How many minutes is it? 18 minutes in. We're already really solving for that dizziness quotient. Okay. Because it's really a matter of balancing the amount of choline that you're increasing in the body. Breathing, honestly, is a really extreme way to rely on getting relaxation. Okay. So, so that's fantastic. And definitely for that, I mean, I would recommend that in the future when it comes to engaging that calm system, or anytime you got to sit down, you got to do some work or you got to have focus, is just do the finger tapping, right? Just do the finger tapping. And another thing you can do with the finger tapping is you can have words or associations with it. You can actually kind of pair some positive associations with the finger tapping. So you have sort of affirmations that are said back to you. One that I like to use, and that's on the Hour of Power guidance, is it's this one. It's every day in every way, I'm feeling better and better. Yes. Every day in every way, I'm feeling more and more healthy. Yes. So you can do this kind of breathing pattern or tapping pattern or word pattern with the finger tapping, right? How cool is that? So yeah. So keep this in the back of your mind, knowing that anything that neurons that fire together when they activate together, like the tapping and then the breathing, which is your vagus nerve network, you can get some of the same effect without necessarily having to overdo it. And thank you for the comment. This is great information to improve our lives. Thanks, and you're very welcome. I'm very happy to do this. Replays will be available on YouTube, so you can always watch this again and send it to a friend or whatever. So I mean that's the core thing here, is that you want to try to find ways to mitigate the harmful effects of breathing. Now, I shared a video a couple days ago that I uploaded all the way back in 2019 while I was at this huge $10 million mansion and overlooking the hills over Silicon Valley in California. I could see the Facebook campus and the Google campus and the Apple campus from our house. Not really. We had to go hiking to go see it, but relatively within a couple minutes of walking. And I would do the Wim Hof breathing practice pretty much every day. And Wim Hof, for me, Wim Hof makes me feel like I'm over flooding my body with choline and, well, acetylcholine. And it has these cognitive enhancing effects. But if I used to promote that a lot, I used to say that was like, you should all do that when you came into the group. I would always get these messages like, I get so dizzy, it's uncomfortable. And I kind of like was like, yeah, but it's still healthy, so you should still try it. However, now I realize, given what we know about this parasympathetic and sympathetic system and how they both can play along with each other, and when you get stressed, both of these systems engage immediately. And what happens is that your body is better able to withdraw a system than it is to build it up from scratch, right? And I think that's a really key distinction. This is in contrast to kind of the stuff that you'll learn in like a polyvagal theory. And I hate to go back to it. I'm not trying to pick on it, but it really is the main, most out there theory that if you're on TikTok, you're going to be learning about polyvagal theory. If you're on Instagram, you're going to learn about polyvagal theory. Have you heard this amazing theory? And what it talks about is that it's like, it kind of says it's this gas and brake system where, you put on the gas and then you put on the brake, and it kind of starts, it portrays these systems as being going from 0 to 60 and then from 0 to 60. And that's totally not accurate. And I think it does matter. I think it really does matter, which is that when you're stressed, your body goes 0 to 60 in both systems, and then it holds them there so that you have high adrenaline and high acetylcholine in your brain. And adrenaline creates this frantic, nervous, hectic, like jittery feeling, right? That's adrenaline, and that's at 60 miles per hour. That's on full gear. And then acetylcholine comes in immediately alongside it to calm the body, to make the muscles rigid, to tone them, to hold you in place. There's a test you do to validate this. They have students or patients sitting on a plate, a pressure plate, that can measure how much your body will sway back and forth, rocking back and forth. And when you have adrenaline rushing through your system and the acetylcholine system is withdrawn, the body will start to sway, and the pressure plate can finally detect that your body is actually moving. But when your acetylcholine matches the level of adrenaline, your body is still. And in polyvagal theory, they call that freezing, but it's anything but. Anything but. If you hooked the brain up to a recording apparatus, you would see the brain's activity is hyperactive. You're not freezing. Your muscles are toned. You are ready for action, okay? So I think that there are some real incredible insights that can come from recent this kind of stuff I'm sharing in this group, just so you understand, is all like from the last 1, 2, 3 years. Whereas polyvagal theory was published in 1994 and has not really been updated since, even though physiologists have said, hey, while we appreciate there's therapeutic benefits to telling people about their vagus nerve, I've seen it, that there need to be some updates. And so I think that this aspect of breathing is a really important part of it, but we have to understand what's really happening, because I see people say, I'm in adrenaline overload all the time. And I'm like, yeah, and are you though really? Is that possible? And can your body maintain a full adrenaline load all the time? And it can and it can't. It's not likely that your body is maintaining adrenaline levels at a super high level constantly. It's very unlikely. What's actually possible is that once these two systems engage, what happens is first what's going to happen once you have the opportunity to make a move, acetylcholine levels will immediately go back down to 30 miles per hour, and adrenaline will stay high. That means that's the moment of action, okay, orienting and actioning. But then when you get to the next thing, your acetylcholine will jump back up and you will halt, okay? So your systems are engaging like this. And your vagus nerve and your acetylcholine system are the fastest systems in your body. They can go from 0 to 60 in 0.2 milliseconds, basically. They're just up, down, up, down. And adrenaline does take a little bit longer to drop down. Your sympathetic system is actually the slower system in your body as far as engaging and dissipating and deteriorating. So that's where this breathing stuff comes in handy, because what's happening for most of you is that your acetylcholine system is dropping out too fast and your adrenaline system is kind of just slowly descending. So let's do another breathing practice lightly, as we said, and I'll just teach you a couple different options, right? So the Wim Hof breathing practice, which most people know, if you don't know it, we'll just do it quickly. If it's going to make you too dizzy, I would try this. Try visualizing yourself doing it, or just watch me do it, and just see if you can feel what I feel by watching my face. This is another thing. This is a contribution of polyvagal theory, I think, is this empathetic vagal nerve connection where you can watch someone's face or even listen to my voice really carefully, because your vagus nerve does directly control your voice. So maybe we'll do this. Maybe thinking on the fly here, being creative, as I'm often to do. What I would like you to do is just, if you can, is just to hum. I just want you to make a noise to yourself right now, and just to go try to match my tone, like this, and see how much you can hold it in a sustained level. Notice if your voice is a little bit shaky, maybe you'll feel a bit nervous, maybe you can't make a tone at all, right? If you can't make that tone, that means that your vagus nerve is not able to engage consistently And that may reveal a deficit in constant input to the muscles that regulate your larynx and your voice box, and also control the soft palate, because you depend on your soft palate to be able to hum, to allow air to go through your nose, right? So there's a lot of vagus nerve involved in just breathing or speaking or humming. So just once again, just and so do this with me. Do a like that. Okay, take note of some of the features, some of the details, and then you don't do it, but just listen to me and just listen to mine. Listen to my hum. Now notice I haven't warmed up for any of this or anything like that, so I may be a little off key. But now let's do kind of just a really quick flood with breathing, okay? So what we're going to do is we're just going to do 3 deep breaths all through the mouth. And then we're going to take a deep breath in on the third one and then hold it. And then what we're going to do is kind of create a little bit of a pressure in the body, like this, to try and like almost squeeze it out, like we're trying to push the air down through our bowels, like you're bearing down. Now, don't do it too much. And again, if you're apt to get dizzy, then just envision you're doing it. Like with tapping, you could just kind of pretend you're doing it and you'll get the same effects. And I mainly want you to do a test for yourself, for your voice, but also listen to my humming voice and see if there's a change, okay? So ready? We're going to do 3 just big in and outs through the mouth. We're intentionally trying to get as much choline into the body so you can see and feel and experience what this cholinergic vice versa system looks like in yourself, okay? Or in another person. You can use me as a case study as well. So ready? Big deep breath in. And I want you to, real quick, breathe in and make noise. Someone should be able to hear you when you're breathing in, like, and then out. It makes a difference that you hold your lips like the way I'm doing it, okay? Breathe in. And out. Another one in. And for this one, we're going to hold and then bear down. Like you're almost trying to take a you know what. Maybe do that for just max of 10 seconds. Some people who are just tuning in are like, this face looks so weird, but no judgment. We're all human here. So, okay. Now that we've done that, I can feel, I feel a rush of that same kind of feeling from the 4-4 breathing, and I feel a pretty nice flood. You'll notice the difference between like a Wim Hof breathing is that's breath of fire, and that's trying to continually flood. With this, it's only just 3 kind of slow breaths, intentionally making that sound with the mouth. The mouth shape and the sound is really, really important. It really does modulate how it is, and it could be because part of your vagus nerve is in your ear, and so your ear, how you sound when you breathe, you're hearing it and you're resonating your vagus nerve. So sound of breathing can change those effects. So let's just do a quick test. Okay, so do a hum with me and see if you can stay on key. Good. Okay, now for you, try just doing it yourself. I'll just give you a moment and not talk. So you go. And maybe notice, how does it sound? Is it brighter? Is it richer? Is it deeper? Is it more sustained? Did you notice a difference in your humming? Did you notice a difference in your feeling? That's because that's a good way to test. I mean, your vagus nerve controls your voice box. Your vagus nerve activity or lack of activity will modulate the quality of your humming voice and your speaking voice too. So so write a 4 in the chat if you did notice some perceptual shift in either mine or your humming voice. We already have a comment: stronger, more sustained and consistent. That's perfect. I always noticed that in yoga class when they had us do like the lip twirl or whatever, the lip twirl, is it what it's called? That my ability to do that was modified by doing yoga as well. I see a lot of comments in the chat too. 4s, a lot of 4s, a lot of 4s. Great, more 4s. So there's definitely some perceptual difference that came from the humming, from the breathing. Yeah, okay, the trill. Thank you. Thank you. The trill of the lips. I always noticed that was modified by breathing as well. And then they would also do in yoga the HA, and the more stressed I was, the less I could do the sound. But after I did breathing in yoga and got really had that rush of choline, and my vagus nerve was very just continually maintaining this flood of acetylcholine, that I could really do a really good HA like that. So those things make a difference. So that's another breathing pattern that you could use. Good. Thank you everybody for commenting. You do the trill with babies. Good. So doing the trill with babies. Yeah. Babies are great. So you can do it. I like to do, what's it called? You blow on their belly button. You know, you go like that. It sounds like they're farting. I do that with my partner all the time. I just like blow on her belly button, makes the farting sound. I don't know, it's kind of a fun, cute thing. So anyway, so that's a second type of breathing that you could do. Let me know for people who may, how did those of us with difficulty with dizziness do? Let me know in the chat. Did the 3 breathing things, did that create a dizziness for you? And keep note of that, because another thing to notice is I believe that as we do the breathing, we strengthen the body's ability to fine-tune choline levels in real time. Just like when you're learning how to, when you're learning how to drive a car and you're putting your feet on the gas pedal and then shifting your foot over to the brake, it's like how much pressure you can fine tune. And that depends on the muscles that you have in your feet getting stronger and stronger. Good. Okay. So some of you are noticing it makes you a little bit dizzy, and that's fine. 4, I liked that breathing. It feels better to me than breath of fire, less dizziness. Totally get you. Yeah, like as I said, I used to be really kind of like gung-ho about Wim Hof, because for me, Wim Hof was like kind of life-changing. I never felt that much like that good. It kind of felt like a drug, basically. Like I was on like drugs when I did Wim Hof. And I was like, yeah, this is awesome. You know, I'm like, I think it was a 26, 27-year-old, very gung-ho about life. I'm like, yeah, let's get high off breathing. Let's do it. And I know that now from the feedback of this 20,000 person group that not everybody appreciates that kind of level of oomph. So the breathing, you can play with it. But yeah, it's really that level of just like, let's look at the corollary, okay? I think the other thing to notice is that if your both systems are engaged and your adrenaline system is withdrawing, but your acetylcholine levels are way too high, then you can get a little bit dizzy. And I think that is what's happening. And it's that combination of movement, right? So when you're seated and your room is not moving, then you can get this disconnect between, you usually breathe heavily when you're in a moving environment, right? Like it's trippy to go walking through a forest. Like picture yourself walking down this beautiful trail. Take yourself back to the last hike you did, and you're just walking. Your feet are crunching on the ground. You're seeing the trees. You're seeing the trunks of the trees passing by. And what starts happening is in your visual field, you're constantly seeing this moving pattern. It's almost like EMDR, which has this constant thing. EMDR was developed, if you know EMDR, like eye movement desensitization therapy, was developed because they noticed that when people were either walking through the forest or driving a car and having the constant input to their visual fields of this movement in periphery, is that they had less stress. Like people, who notices that they like to talk in a car? It's like it's therapeutic to go driving. It is. It's therapeutic to walk through nature, partially because nature is nice, but it's also partially because you're activating these like visual fields that control your autonomic system, which regulate your choline, which influence your vagus nerve and your orientation response in your eyes. So there's a lot involved in that process. So EMDR is pretty genius in that they were like, well, we could just have someone sit down and move their eyes like this, or have them like have a pebbles that vibrate in their hands. Again, remember, like, you know, some of these connections: finger tapping, pebbles that vibrate, moving your eyes, breathing, desensitization, increasing choline. You can't really do a good therapy with someone if the levels of choline aren't tuned properly, right? Like if you're working through difficult emotions, you want to have choline levels at a good high level, but not too high so the patient doesn't get disoriented. So managing those levels is important. And that's where things like, you know, stimulation of the vagus nerve specifically and directly is is a good form of vagus nerve stimulation, in that for people who typically find themselves to get really dizzy really quickly, you can stimulate the vagus nerve through the neck, through the cervical branch, like with ultrasound, and it tightly lets you really carefully control the dose, like very specifically and very accurately. Because sometimes, you know, maybe it'll take 3 breaths, and the effect I get isn't always the same. But with a physical device, you know, you just set it like low, medium, high. Use it for 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever, and it's always going to be the same biological activation from time to time, dependent on your nutrition and some other factors, of course, but it's much more accurate for stimulation. So good. So that's a form of breathing that can help. We'll do another one, which is like, I think it's like, I'll show off just a couple different breathing practices that you can do, and we have the resources to support them as well. So while this video is going to be great for you to learn, what's going to make the most difference is if you develop a daily habit of breathing in a way that's going to help you. So what I would say is we should certainly incorporate that 4-4 breathing pattern, and that's going to be called the hour of power. I'll just write that in the chat here for Facebook fam. Hour of power, right? So I'll just write that so you see that visually. Links will be provided after this video today. And then another one is called priming. So we're gonna do an exercise from a priming video that I use personally. It's one that I have on my VR headset. So I have a brand of virtual reality headsets that goes out to some of my clients who opt in for it. And what's on it is a whole collection of video guidance for kind of Kundalini-esque energy healing. And you can activate your cholinergic system without breathing at all. I mean, you still have to breathe, but you don't have to breathe in intense ways to get very good spiritual effects. And if you saw our great video on Wednesday about the spiritual processes of vagus nerve stimulation or vagus nerve work, is that there's definitely a connection between spirituality and choline and breathing and like transcending. And so when your vagus nerve is really capable and ready to receive that big amount of choline, you can have arguably very spiritual experiences, timeline shifting, this kind of stuff. If you don't know, go back and watch that video from Wednesday on the spirituality of the vagus nerve. So what I'm going to share right now is, I'm going to write it in the chat, is from the we call it Mega Ultra Priming Video Breathing Example. Okay, so I'm going to type that in the chat. Okay, so with this one it's called the Skull Shining Breath. This is one that I do about every day, or maybe every other day, or every third day of the week. Okay? I do the 4-4 breathing every single day, probably multiple times throughout the day. Take little breaks here and there throughout my work day, and I'll go outside, walk, ground, get in the sun, do my 4-4 with really beautiful music and affirmations and everything. So the Mega Ultra Priming Video Breathing example is a different video, different resource. We'll share it as well. And that involves the skull shining to start. So what it's going to be is you're going to take your hands and you're going to put them up like this. And when your hands go up, you breathe in through your nose like that. And then when your hands come down and you make a fist, you breathe out through your nose, okay? And the way this one goes is it's going to be 30 breaths, like full 30 full breaths, okay? So it looks like this. Like that. So that's the process. I'm only breathing in and out of my nose. You're getting that nice cooling effect running over the vagus nerve. You're probably doing some manner of diaphragmatic engagement because there's a more pressure, there's more muscle movement, these kinds of things. So let's do this together. And this one probably won't make you feel as dizzy. The benefit to this one is that it seems to engage a little bit of it lets you get a little bit of adrenaline and a little bit of choline at the same time. So you're not left feeling like wobbly, right? So let's do 10 of these skull shining breaths from the Mega Ultra Priming video resource. So you have a real physical example here. So breathe in. And 10. Good. So that's the skull shine. I immediately feel that my voice has changed. It feels a little bit deeper. I can speak a little bit deeper in my voice now. Thanks to what that's called, that the ability for my voice to speak a little bit deeper is called the recurrent laryngeal nerve, which is the branch of the vagus nerve that goes down. So there's a part of there's the superior laryngeal nerve, which connects to your voice box right here, goes direct. But then there's the recurrent laryngeal nerve, which runs all the way down your throat, wraps around your heart, around your aorta, and then runs back up to the very bottom of your vocal cords. And so when you activate your vagus nerve and you have a heart-centered feeling, then you are literally speaking through your heart. How wild is that? So that whole saying, speak from your heart, or sing from your heart, or say it from your heart from a deep place. That's literally anatomically what has to happen. Pretty wild. And that's all the vagus nerve. That's literally all vagal nerve activity. If you surgically cut your vagus nerve, you would lose the ability to speak, depending on how deeply you cut or how many parts you cut. So, interesting. So, put a 5 in the chat if you felt some difference, or, let me know how you felt with the skull shining. So, the 10. And I would recommend, because we're breathing in and out of the nose, sometimes you might want to blow your nose beforehand. Usually I'll blow my nose or bring a napkin with me if I'm going to be doing priming in the day. So I blow out my nose, get anything out of there, and then I'll do the full skull shine. So in the skull shine practice, you're going to do 30 of those. So like that. Okay, good. So we see some 5s. We have another comment here. Yep, that's the one that COVID damaged on me. So that's a good exercise for me. Good. So yeah, when we talk about like nerve damage, and really a big reason why this Facebook group is called Vagus Nerve Stimulation and Repair is that it's one thing to just stimulate the vagus nerve, it's another thing to repair it. And we also recognize the value of stimulating and doing neural repair. And there's a lot of protocols that you can implement to actually repair the nerves. And I think somebody asked me, like, because I say, like, as far as rehabilitation of these nerves, and I see a lot of 5s. Thank you. 5, 5, 5, 5. Good. Some people got some difference there. The thing to know is that we're also doing like rehabilitation. We are rehabilitating the vagus nerve from probably previous levels of damage accumulated over the years. And how do you do that? Well, for instance, like speaking right now, because I'm using my vagus nerve, I am, in essence, I'm using the vagus nerve. I'm actually using the vagus nerve. So speaking is using it. However, there are cases where people can speak improperly, where they only use their superior upper laryngeal nerve. They're not engaging that bottom half. And it's like this part's active, but this part's static and still, right? And it you could just hear it in your voice, right? You can hear in someone's voice when they're not able to engage that heart-centered, deeper, calmer, embodied voice, is that you can do damage to the voice box over time, over years, if you don't even speak properly. So there's a lot to rehabilitation of the vagus nerve, and so you want to make sure that you're integrating. That's just how we're built. That's just genetically the body. How that all happened was that if you look at the development of fish, their vagus nerve ran through their gills to their heart, and the pathway was pretty straight, right? But as humans, well, as fish and mammals developed and got longer necks, the heart got pulled further down, and the vagus nerve never figured out a way to kind of reroute itself. So if you look at a giraffe, for instance, you'll see that the vagus nerve runs all the way down their neck, down through their heart, and all the way back up to their voice box right here, right? Whatever voice box that a giraffe has. They're not speaking unless you're watching like Zootopia or whatever. But yeah, so it's the same thing with humans. And the reason that is just genetics. It's just evolutionary. But you got to integrate these things at the same time. And a good way to do that is with breathing, and to another degree is stimulating, right? So if you stimulate at the lower level below the voice box, you can, in a way, activate this recurrent laryngeal nerve of the vagus nerve and speak quite a lot deeper. So you can enhance and modulate some of these breathing practices with concordantly stimulating your vagus nerve. And so some people who are in the program, depending on which stage you're at, we usually start at phase 1. We usually start people with a phase 1 program. You're going to find that you can do light breathing and stimulate your vagus nerve at the same time and modulate and enhance and get a different effect. So there's a cool thing you can do there. So, okay, so that's the skull shining breath. Now, I think the fourth and I think the final one we're going to practice here is also from the Mega Ultra Priming video resource, okay? So in the Mega Ultra Priming video resource, which we have available, and this is free to you, you can go watch it. I have YouTube Premium, and it's on YouTube, and so you can actually download it to your phone. And what I like to do is I like to take my AirPods, open them up, put the AirPods in, then keep my phone in my locker, go into the sauna, and then I will actually be able to do the whole Mega Ultra Priming practice in the sauna. So we have a really nice sauna at my gym, and I do that. So you can kind of mix and match when you do these things, but I just want to demonstrate it so you have a real, actual example of what this looks like. So it's called Matrix Energetics, and it is a breathing practice, but it's also a hand practice. It's an energy practice that you would find kind of, if you know, like Reiki or energetic healing or craniosacral. It's kind of in this more vibe, woo-woo kind of spiritual kind of thing, which I do. And there's a difference between haphazardly parking your car and hitting bumper to bumper on the cars in front and back of you. And then there's a form of like driving down the street and hitting your emergency brake and going and smoothly, like James Bond, just easing right into that parking space. And there's different ways of breathing that will put you in that same direction you want to go, but how you get there ultimately determines the effect and the feeling of what it's like to be there. Okay? So really want to just quickly read the comment. Also had the CV damage, required a water break. Yeah, so you might need some water break. Your vagus nerve is irritated. Your vagus nerve innervates your entire esophagus in that area. And so if it's overactivated or irritated, then water is very helpful. So make sure you stay hydrated, obviously. But yeah, so another reason to look at this is the CV. I'm not going to say the name, but we all know what they're talking about. Is that this illness that's going around the world is attacking in the vagus nerve specifically. It really is, guys. It's just 100%. It's getting in there. It's probably latching inside of it. It's making a home out of your vagus nerve. And what we've now found from some of my mentors, some really genius physicists and scientists and geneticists and doctors, is that your vagus nerve, the spike proteins, latch into the centrioles and the microtubules and are actually controlling from the inside out, like a host, the processes of cellular signaling. So people are almost being like created into this almost zombie-like state to some degree. So take that in mind. I won't go into that too much. That's a whole nother video. But maybe we'll have one of the researchers on sometime. I would love to have him on. He's a good friend of mine. Okay, so anyway, moving on. I want to do the second breathing practice from the skull shining in the Ultra Mega video. Okay, and so here's what it is. It's a practice where I want you can close your eyes and listen, or still watch me. You're going to see a white, gold, or blue, or any color light coming from the sky, and with your hands, you can keep your hands in your lap, palms up if you want. But what I found really does make a difference, if you don't mind, if nobody's watching, even if somebody's watching, is to take your hands from the sky and actually like pull down or follow the path of this light. Let it go into your skull, your brain, your shoulders, your neck, your shoulders, your arms, your chest, your back, your stomach, your quad muscles, your knees, your calves, your feet, and then seeing that light go down into the center of the earth, down to the core of the earth. And in an ancient Chinese tradition that I learned, there's this myth of this snake, this intertwining snake that wraps around the core of the earth like an apple 3.5 times. So do 3.5 spins around the core of the earth. It's really 3 as we do it. But you're going to go. What I do is I put my hands down to the ground, and I do this with my hands. So if my hands were down below, like I was seeing light coming out of my feet and controlling this like streaming path of light, I see it going down and curling like this. 1, 2. I'll actually do this with my fingers. 3, and then up. And then I'll bring that light back up through my feet, up through my calves, my legs, my butt, my lower back, my stomach, my chest, my arms, my neck, my skull. And then with my because I've been talking, but in this practice, my lungs would be full of air, and I would exhale. Shh. Or remember, with the sound is important. Shh. And I will take my hands and just shh, push that light all the way back up and into the sky. So it's the full healing process, right? Yes. Great comments too, by the way. I just want to acknowledge you guys for commenting. A great old school friend of mine here, young in spirit. I always learn so many fun tidbits about the workings of the vagus nerve from you. Aw, grateful for your wisdom. Thank you. Yep. And those of us who got it early found spike 15 to 16 months and it's still there. Yep. But you can you can counter-modulate your vagus nerve to kind of shake off the spike proteins, I think. And I think the thing that could do it would be ultrasound, right? Ultrasound like buzzes cells really quickly and it shakes things around. I would say you could like shake off the spike protein by putting ultrasound into the body and free yourself. De-zombify your cells. Use ultrasound. I don't know. Copyright it if you want, whatever. Somebody says, I'm in a zombie state, right? Yes, and once you see it, it's so obvious. It is. Not to be controversial. I just heard some people after CV express with eardrums are exploding. Doctor's words, not mine. Wondering if at this point about Vegas ramped up. In simple terms, what are your thoughts on this? Wow. Could be like the non-release of pressure in the ear. I mean, that's wild. That's totally wild. Um, all I can say is I'm really glad that I have my ultrasound. Just saying. Anyway, and I caught COVID just about 6 weeks ago, and I'm totally fine. I caught it back in 2019. Totally fine. I hate saying that word. I feel like I'm gonna get demonetized. I'm not even monetized on Facebook. I have a tiny little Facebook or tiny little YouTube platform. Anyway, so coming back to it, from the Mega Ultra Priming video, we are gonna do just one quick body scan light process, remembering that the snake in the ancient Chinese traditions of the Kundalini, or just even the vagus nerve is represented as a snake essentially. You're going to see the vagus nerve pathway light up all the way through your feet, and it's going to go down into the center of the earth, right? My hands are literally like descending down, and I can see the light going down out of my feet, down into the ground, down to the core of the earth. I see the earth as this like golden orb, or the center of the earth is this golden orb, and the tail of the snake, or there's this energy just wraps around it, but it has to wrap around 3 times. And you do it with your hands. 1, 2, 3, and then back up. Whoosh, like that. And then it comes all the way through your body. And then remember, you exhale and you go, shoo, and your hands go up really quickly. So there's a skull shining kind of thing at the very, very end of it, right? Remember, skull shining is just... So you start with bringing things down, and then wrapping around the earth, and then like that. Okay? So let's do this together. Ready? Everybody breathe in. See that light coming down to the skull and the head, the healing energy down to the neck, the shoulders, the arms, the chest, the back, the stomach, the legs, the calf muscles, the feet, going down into the ground, that healing, cleansing energy, wrapping around the center of the earth 3 times. 1, 2, 3, and then back up through the feet, up through the legs, the body, and then ready, that deep breath in, and then shooting up and out and into the sky again, right? Good. Now, if you did this process repeatedly, you might notice like that you're going to feel different. And write a 6 in the chat if you felt a something there, if you felt a modification. We've already kind of built up some choline already, so it might not be as distinguishable. But if you follow the process in the video, in the Mega Ultra Priming guided video, which is it is what it is. It's a great video. Don't judge. Be open-minded, right? It's really great. We see, okay, so we got a 6, more energy straight away. Great. I mean, listen, this is the practice that I do. I think it gives me access to blessings, to spirit. It's pretty awesome. I don't think there's anything weird about it. Whatever. People who judge me, they don't know what they're missing. Okay? When I lay my head down or I'm relaxing at the end of the day, I just go, "Oh my gosh, I am so grateful for my life. I have a great life. I'm so happy. I just feel happy. I don't know why. Probably because the practices I do. And because of all your beautiful faces here. So these are the things that count. These are the things that go into that process, right? That's how you do it. And I'm always like, people who just are constantly in that low energy state, or who are depressed or anxious, or they're hurting themselves mentally over and over and over again. They're just down on themselves. I'm like, at some level, knowing what I know, this may sound mean, but could it not be considered sort of a choice at some level, right? Like, I get it. Like, if they've never heard of anything I've ever talked about, or any of this stuff is completely new to them, then it's not a choice. But if you've been exposed to this knowledge, and then you go back to your old ways, and you're just like, yeah, you know what? I'm just not going to do it just to see how I feel, just to play around with it. I'm just going to test. Is Sterling right? Is he totally full of it? I'm just going to stop doing any of these things and just take a break. And like, I've done the same thing because I want to know, like, am I full of BS too? And there have been periods in time where I've been like gung ho about all the practices, and then just said, I'm just gonna do intentionally. I'm gonna try 30 days, 2 months, 3 months, and just make it the lowest priority. If it happens, it happens, but just gonna kind of just wing it. And when that happens, I can daily detect just a lower, it's like going down, 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 almost like detracting from the effects. Where there were some days where after just intentionally not breathing, not meditating, not doing affirmations, doing nothing at all, that I would just wake up someday and be like, I don't feel very good. I don't feel happy at all. There would be some days like that. And I'm like, and I would recognize, I couldn't help but recognize and acknowledge that the tools that I have available to me to make this work are within arm's reach, right? And I'm going to teach you how to make these things with literally, so they're like just, you can pick them up and make them accessible. There's like just little pieces of tech, little pieces of tools where the audio for the hour of power is just loaded on a headset, and you just press play and you just put it on. It's a really cool tech. It's called bone conduction. And so you don't even have to put anything in your ear. So if you don't like wearing over-ear things or putting earbuds in, you don't have to deal with any of that stuff. It just goes right over your bone right here in the front, and it plays the music in your head, so you can go walking and still hear the environment, but you can hear the breathing. And just doing that, if you haven't done it for months or years, or you've never done it in your life, this stuff will bring you right back on top, back to the top, to the number one spot in your life is you, right? You are the number one spot. And I notice is that if you notice, just continuing a thread from Wednesday's call, right? We talked about the spirituality of the vagus nerve and the idea of pendulums, right? We talk about how do you become free of the pendulums. I want you to be free. You need to be free, and you do it by being a strong individual of yourself. And the way you do it is through breathing. It's through affirmation. It's through engaging your cholinergic system, because pendulums are super destructive to you when they tap into your fear. And we know that adrenaline, this system that goes from 0 to 60 really quickly, the adrenaline system is the fear chemical. It's that frantic chemical. It's the one that makes you make rash, hasty, quick decisions without thinking about them, right? The acetylcholinergic system, we want that engaged because it lets you take a step back and really make smart, intelligent, thoughtful decisions about what you want to do with your life. And so pendulums depend on destructive pendulums depend on a population that has vagus nerves that are damaged and incapable of engaging properly. So if you feel that anxiety, you feel that shakiness, you feel that franticness, it's probably not your fault. You have been born into this system of highly destructive pendulums. The pendulums give and then they take. Pendulums give beautiful buildings, television, celebrities, wow, this shiny fancy car that I just got or whatever. Pendulums give, but they also take. They make you feel sometimes worse about yourself. They make you feel too self-aware. They make you feel embarrassed. They feel peer pressure and fearful. And then they put stuff in the water, and then they put stuff in the food, and like things like glyphosate, which are a pesticide that directly deteriorates the function of your parasympathetic system. Glyphosate and Roundup and Monsanto chemicals that they spray on your food. Glyphosate is an anticholinergic compound. Well, it's actually it's acetylcholinesterase inhibitor. So it disrupts heavily your parasympathetic system. It makes it essentially it makes it so that your acetylcholinergic system cannot engage properly, right? Yes, it is. Glyphosate is absolutely evil. I think one time my video feed, when I went on a rant about this, my video feed dropped suddenly, okay? So I just want to warn you, I can't go into this kind of stuff too much, okay? Just so you know. Anyway, I should probably think about ending the YouTube video at this point. So I'm just gonna put a little bow tie on the public YouTube video, and we can go back to the Facebook family here. But yeah, so overall, if you want the resources for the Hour of Power, that's going to be in the description of the YouTube video, and then also for the Mega Ultra Priming video, which is the the Matrix Energetics practice that I do pretty often. You're going to find that all in the description of the YouTube video, and then if you're in the Facebook group as well, I'll make sure I post those links as well. And the resource on how to load the Hour of Power audio on the bone conduction headphones, and I found a really great couple of deals for these headphones. You can find them all over the world. The one that I use is about $59, but I found a great deal for one that's $19. I can't validate how good it is, but it looks like a pretty good product. And so I will share the link to those things. So within next week, you could be doing an Hour of Power, listening to it, like just flooding your brain with like positive music, positive affirmations, my nice, rich, and happy voice, and doing shh, 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 shh. Every day in every way, I'm feeling better and better. Yes. And I'll also share the link so you can listen to it beforehand, so you can get a gauge for it if you like it or not. You might like it, you might hate it, whatever, but it's going to be there for you. So anyway, thank you all for watching on YouTube, and we're going to wrap that up here just in a second. I'm just going to end that feed, and we'll go back to Facebook. So thanks everybody on YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're trying to grow this channel. Hopefully you can monetize it somehow. I don't know. We're going to get a big YouTube channel. So go over there and like and subscribe. Thank you, YouTube. Bye-bye.